So we'll move into the first item, and I'll invite Marcus to present the report. So that's the relocation of Redditch Library. Marcus.
Good morning, Leader, good morning, Cabinet, and everybody else, and indeed all of the viewers at home. Well, I obviously bored everybody on Tuesday afternoon because I was expecting to see rather more people here today, but they obviously were content with what I said on Tuesday. Let me start by formally moving the recommendations on page 1, little a to e inclusive, and set out the narrative and indeed background and position of Worcestershire County Council. It is, of course, our statutory responsibility to ensure that we have a comprehensive and efficient library service. I'm sure you're all fully familiar with the 1964 Public Libraries and Museums Act, which is, of course, still good law. And I'm absolutely confident that this County Council provides a comprehensive and efficient library service, not just to the good people of Redditch, but to every single resident across Worcestershire. And we have a very good story and narrative to tell in respect of all of our 21 libraries, right from Redditch in the north and down to Broadway in the south. And I need to make it absolutely clear as to what our role is in all of this. And as the leader alluded to when he declared an interest in respect of being involved in the Towns Board, Redditch Borough Council have bid for a quantum of cash that they have been successful with from central government. And they have a quantum of cash in order to redevelop their town centre. And indeed, they have an aspiration to open up part of the town centre where our current library is situated, and indeed try and attract more customers, residents, businesses for economic regeneration and the nighttime economy purposes. Now, those, of course, are matters for the Borough Council to deal with, indeed, in terms of our role, what I want to ensure happens is that we have a library service that is as efficient and effective and as accessible as is currently where it is. Now, the proposal would, of course, see our library effectively replicated within Redditch Town Hall across 4 floors, indeed with basement storage for some of the archives as is now. And as the report very clearly sets out, in my judgment and the professional advice that I've received from my Assistant Director for Communities and indeed officers within the library team, we can re-provide what we provide now to the residents of Redditch and the wider community within a new building. And page 6, paragraph 19 sets out the existing area within Redditch, and this effectively would be proposed, and in fact there's a modest increase in the term of the square meterage. Much of the concern, it strikes me, is in respect of, whether there would still be the availability of the meeting rooms and all of the user groups that are there, and absolutely the provision would have to be replicated, and it would have to be as accessible as it is now. And the report also deals with the commercial arrangements, and in fact there are some commercial arrangements to be settled still, and that's why there's a delegation in little d. But at a high level, of course, we own the freehold title of where the library is. We're going to continue under these proposals to hold the freehold title and grant Redditch Borough Council a 125-year lease upon them, which is pretty standard in these type of transactions. And indeed, in return, we would also have a 125-year lease on the town hall granted to us. Indeed, we, of course, as no difficulty with being open and transparent, clearly have a substantial rental income from the DWP, as set out in Table 1, and those matters would continue. And the availability of bookings and charges and meeting costs would remain as is. And it's important that we remind ourselves that in terms of Worcestershire County Council's perspective, this would be at nil cost. It strikes me that in terms of our role and there were a number of public speakers on Tuesday at the scrutiny meeting, and I thank all of the members of the public and indeed members of the OSPB board and Councillor Wells for his very able chairing of it, most of the public participants and their contributions were really matters for the borough and not for us. Our role is to ensure that there's a proper consultation process, and this is now the formal part of the journey. I say now, as I did on Tuesday afternoon, that I, and I'm sure my Cabinet colleagues, will very much be in listening mode, because we want to hear what the public have got to say about this, and there will be a divergence of views. And of course, absolutely, we will have due regard for that. There were questions posed on Tuesday afternoon about whether we would, make the public consultation responses public and whether they would get to see what is said. Well, absolutely, this will be a proper, formal, open and transparent process that will follow the rules that need to be followed, because absolutely we would want to ensure that it is legal and it is very, very clear. And obviously the Equality Act and our public sector equality duty will all be factored into that, and indeed paragraph 29 makes reference to it, the joint impact assessment. There was one member of the scrutiny board that suggested that perhaps we weren't capable of being able to carry out our own consultation, and it needs to be independent. Well, in all the years that I've been on the Cabinet and member of this council, I think that actually we're more than capable of carrying out a fair, independent process ourselves without the need to go to external, independent people. Because after all, if our process is flawed, I'm sure that someone will want to jump on board and judicially review us. And of course, that is the last thing that I believe would be the case, because I know that we will do it properly. We will make the consultation process as open as possible, as accessible as possible. There'll be drop-in events at Redditch. You'll be able to do the survey online. You can be assisted to do it at the library. You can have a paper copy. We will facilitate those who are hard of hearing, who are visually impaired, those whose English isn't their first language. But we will ensure that the survey and the consultation process is as accessible to all. And all of the results will come back in a report which will obviously be considered by the community's scrutiny panel in advance of any report coming back before a Cabinet meeting next May. So I wanted to reassure everybody that it will be a full consultation process. And so with that, Chairman, I've moved the recommendations and look for a seconder.
Thank you, Marcus. Andy.
Yeah, I formally second the recommendation. Councillor Hart has outlined the proposals and the technicalities. I don't intend to go over there, but if I may just for a few minutes put things into a bit of context. And I need to go back in time, because in the late Queen's Silver Jubilee, I was for a time the officer in charge of Redditch Fire Station. And the town was still being built then. I mean, it was extraordinary. We had the library was a year old, along with the shopping centre. It had an absolutely unique highway. In that shopping centre, as I remember, and I don't think I'd ever heard of this before, it had plants, palm trees in the shopping centre, totally new, and it was a very exciting and futuristic town. Now the borough has got, £15.6 million, and they're looking again to see what was innovative in 1977, whether that can now be improved on, which I think is a quite reasonable thing to do. However, as Marcus has explained, we have responsibilities regarding library, and we see the library as an essential part of what Redditch has to offer. So, of course, we've got to tread cautiously. There's certain things that, caveats you might say. We've made sure that the library space is as it will be. We don't want to see a reduction in the library service, but we also want to see that the wider library service is served. And being parochial about that, that might mean the library being able to facilitate a family hub, which is where we're going to with meeting people's needs. So it's only on that basis, on establishing those factors, we're going to have the library, same space, same service, enhanced service. Only on that basis that we're looking to move forward on consultation. Taking the views of the community, that's the users, but also hopefully potential users. And there will be different views. I'm sure some will say that unless you change things, you don't get change. That's it. You know, you can't leave everything as it is forever. And others, we have to accept, will have a different view. I mean, it's what the library is what Age and I might think of as being our-reg. You know, it's that dated. But there are some who might see that as being outdated, and others might see it as being classic. And we've got to be prepared for that view. So it's not for me to have an opinion. What it is for me to do is to second Marcus's proposal that we give a voice to the people of Redditch. And just in passing, from my experience all those years ago, I saw the people of Redditch as being Worcestershire's pioneers. So I think they're worth listening to. And I hope that through that listening and reaction to what you say, we can reach a proper resolution.
Thank you, Andy. With the proposition being moved and seconded, I wonder whether I can bring in Emma Stokes, because Emma is the chair of the relevant panel, which is the Corporate and Comms, but importantly she also sits on OSPB and has agreed to feedback on behalf of OSPB, and I hear you had a busy and comprehensive meeting. So give us some of that feedback, Emma.
Oh, thank you, Cabinet, and it's lovely to be here. Yes, it was an exciting meeting on Tuesday, and I do sit before you as chairman of the Corporate and Communities panel. Although the board actually went to Redditch, I was there in the capacity as the chairman of the Corporate and Communities, and it was an exciting afternoon. Firstly, I would like to thank Redditch Borough Council for hosting the board and the public meeting, and for their bravery in pursuing the economic growth plans created by the Town Centre Board, and for securing 15 million government funding to do exciting and advantageous work for Redditch Town. So congratulations to Redditch on securing that funding. I also thank the board, the OSPB board, for the concise and direct questioning of the Redditch Borough Council leader, that's Councillor Matt Dormer, and to Councillor Marcus Hart and Hannah Perrow for their professional responses despite political banners and rude taunts from a certain minority. It's always distressing when the best for the public is actually devolved into a political game. The board's questioning tried in the main to remain within the remit, but inevitably we did stray into the wider Borough Council plans. And I do have a list of potential questions that arose from that meeting, which I believe Marcus will be aware of. But in essence, he has mentioned them quite succinctly earlier on, and our main concern is that the consultation process is taken seriously, it is held in a competent and inclusive manner, and I believe this council has a history of listening to people, and I'm sure it will continue to listen to the people of Redditch. They do have a lot of sensible comments. I was very impressed with how the majority of the people handled themselves at that meeting. So I present those comments to Marcus, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Emma. That's most illuminating, actually, in terms of some of the issues that were brought up and the wider plans that were considered. So I wonder whether I can open it up in terms of any other, firstly, take Cabinet colleagues and then wider participants. So I'll bring in Mike.
Thank you, Leader. As members here will know, I was, until May 2022, a member of Redditch Borough Council's Executive Committee, so I've been familiar with the bid as part of the Towns Fund, which is the genesis of the report that comes before us today. You'll also know that the good people of Churchill, in their wisdom, decided to relieve me of any potential conflicts of interest by removing me from that council. So I speak today mostly... Yes, indeed. So I speak today mostly from the County Council's perspective. That means I'm not going to, as others have not, speak to the wider vision and business case for the regeneration of Redditch Town Centre, of which I'm very supportive. Indeed, I coined the phrase Unlock Redditch back in 2017, and I was delighted about the £15 million of investment coming in, and I think it's a fantastic job that's been done there. But it's the Borough Council's role to decide what it wants to do with its town centre, and it's ours as a County Council to decide what we want to do with our library service there. As colleagues have pointed out, the request to relocate the service has come from the Borough Council. Their whole executive has voted in favour of the package that accompanies it, and they've done so with eyes wide open. They know that they have to sell the vision. They're in speaking mode. We're in listening mode. And we've seen the passions, and Councillor Stokes talked about that at the local council meetings, although perhaps there's a limit to those passions, because I know there's not a single member of that Labour Party that was so vociferous at the OSPB meeting here today to make representation to us as the Cabinet, as a decision-making body. But I'm grateful to see that the leader of the Borough Council is here in support of the plans and proposals. So I think that says a lot. But it is right that people have a sense of pride and ownership over their library service. We value the very high regard that people place within the library service, and any part of change is important to take people with you on the journey, complete with all that passion that they show along the way and the noise that they may make. So that's why it's important we're here today, being fully open and transparent about the position that the County Council has set out in its report. I note, for instance, that we're requiring there's no reduction in space and stipulations on the look and feel of the move of the service in future. And I'm seeing positive things about this in the report. We're hiding nothing, and the report demonstrates that. So the next step, as I understand it, is to see what people of Redditch and Worcestershire think about it via a 90-day full statutory public consultation with face-to-face, online and full engagement opportunities. And that's a really good opportunity for the people of Redditch and Worcestershire to have a say on these proposals. They'll be able to take a closer look, explore the details, and let us know if this is something they support for their town. And I would argue they should support it for their town. As my colleague, Councillor Roberts, said that you know, Redditch has a history of being pioneering, and I would call on them to be pioneering today. But as we know, this is an important opportunity for people to have their say. We are accountable to the people. It's important that we involve them in the process, and we have to have due regard for the outcome. So I implore people to make sure that they do feed into that process. But above all, let's all keep working together like we have done. Let's all keep unlocking the potential of Redditch Town Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We'll just look whether there's any other Cabinet speakers first, and if not, then I wonder whether there are any other speakers that want to make any comment. Bring in Matt. Matt.
Hello, thank you, and thank you for allowing me make comment today. Obviously, I'm here in support of the library regeneration project. Yes, you're right, it is part of the 16.6 million pot of money we got from government. And it is an actual integral part of our regeneration of the town. By the removal of the building and relocation to of the library into our town hall, that will become part of a community hub which will massively benefit the town and the people of the town. The removal of the building itself will improve the footfall, it will improve flow. We have a phenomenal asset in the Kingfisher Shopping Centre, which has in the region of 20,000 movements of people of a weekend. Those people don't venture outside, and this will hopefully be a removal of a blocker that will allow them to wander outside and engage with the businesses that are around our Church Green, which again is a lovely attraction but doesn't see enough footfall. And I think then once we can improve the footfall in that area, that will inevitably help fill up some of those empty shops, because we'll have businesses want to trade in that area because of the increased footfall. And yeah, so that's basically it in a nutshell, really. I don't want to stray into the rest of the town's fund, because the key part is the library for me today. And I do urge all of the residents of Redditch, if they are listening, to fill the survey in, engage positively, keep your eyes open, and you know, keep an open mind and look at the plans, because the plans are fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other speakers? Matt again. Two Matts.
Two Matts, taking over. Thank you, Simon. Not being a resident of Redditch, don't know all the details behind this. Obviously, I know there's arguments for and against. I was just wondering about the lengthy consultation, which is obviously good. I'm wondering what would happen if, for example, there is, within that consultation, a kind of a high proportion who are against the move. Obviously, I know, by the sound of it, it's the Borough Council's decision. How would that kind of end up being passed back to the Borough Council? I mean, if there's a lot of, you know, vociferous arguments against it, what happens then, I suppose? Thank you.
I'll look to Marcus maybe to pick that up in terms of summarising, but I'll see whether there's any other points first in terms of any other speakers. But no, okay. Marcus, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good question, Matt. And I do love your shirt. I don't think I could ever get away with wearing one like that, though. But certainly not at Cabinet. But it's a good question, and it was touched upon on Tuesday. And of course, far be it from me to start speculating and predicting on what the outcome of a consultation might be. Very unwise of a politician to start to preempt what the public might think. But of course, I will just make the point that it's a consultation, it's not a referendum, and we will consider and have full due regard for the consultation, and I look forward to all of the good people of Redditch and the wider community taking the opportunity to tell us exactly what they think between the 7th of November this year and the 24th of February next year, which is a full clear 90 days, even taking into account the Christmas and New Year period. As I said, and thank you for everyone's comments, we are very much in listening mode.
Okay, if there are no other speakers, maybe I'll sum up. I would absolutely encourage people across Redditch and wider Worcestershire that might have a view to engage, keep an open mind, to have a look at the proposals, and to let us know their views, because we're absolutely committed to making sure, as we all are, that we have a comprehensive library service across Worcestershire. We're very proud we've kept the 21 libraries we've got open. There are no plans to change that whatsoever as part of this. So the library service will remain in Redditch and be accessible, as Marcus has said. And this is about its precise location and makeup in terms of that. So keep an open mind, engage in the process. As Marcus said, we're in listening mode, and we want to hear what people have to say. And we're going to do this properly. I want to reassure scrutiny of that as well for the comments were made. I'm proud of our council in terms of the way it engages and listens. I'm proud of our officers as well. So I have no problem in terms of the council undertaking this. I absolutely would want to put on record that I wouldn't support another agency doing it. We're an independent council. We can run our own consultations. Therefore, that's not something we wish to take up, although it was, as you made clear, Emma, a remark was made during the OSPB meeting. So are we all in support of starting the journey of consultation, colleagues? Thank you so much.